Okay, when we're searching for advice for young artists, advice for artists starting out, tips for beginner artists, etc., 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 we oftentimes come with, or we oftentimes see or find or get that advice around how to make better art. What type of art should you make? How to do the art making creation type of thing. Now, the truth is that advice is oftentimes good, like there's nothing against that advice, but there's a problem with it. And the problem is simple. 99.9% of artists will never be a successful artist, will never sell a lot of art. The truth is that making art should perhaps not be the first advice that you get. It should perhaps not be the main advice that you get. The stats are very simple. In 2017, for example, from the millions of emerging artists, visual artists, like not just emerging, just artists in general, millions, 14 ran away with 57% of the profits. 57% of the profits if you look at all the auction houses and sales connected to that. Now those stats are against becoming a successful artist, becoming a full-time artist in general. And so the advice, the tips that I want to give in this video are around selling art. How to actually become a successful artist in that you can sell art. Perhaps not the best artist, perhaps not making the best works, but first things first, make sure that you can sell so that you can live, And so let's start off with the first tip for selling art. Now, a lot of artists, and I don't blame them, when they are talking with a collector on an art fair, during an exhibition, a show that they have, they will be talking a lot. Why? Because they've learned through school to talk a lot about art. When you have an exam and you have to write an answer about some kind of painting, you have to write down that answer. You have to make sure that all the keywords are in there and a lot of other stuff that's in there. When you talk and you talk and you talk. The truth is, when it comes to sales, you want to talk as little as possible. You almost don't want to talk at all. The talking should have already happened on your website, on your social media profile, on your whatever, like your newsletter, whatever you have. Talking is not part of the sales process. And so in the sales process, you want to ask as many questions as you can and let them do the talking, let them do the convincing. The truth is that you will not be able to convince them there. You're not going to convince them. They have to convince themselves, and you can guide them in that path towards convincing themselves, towards loving or falling in love with your work, towards visualizing your work in their home, in their collection, etc., etc., etc. And so, stop talking. That's my first advice. It's stop talking. There's a time for talking and there's a time for doing, for selling, and for letting them talk. In your sales conversation, make sure that they do 90% of the talking. So in line with that, and this is a very important remark as well, because a lot of times I go to art fairs or shows or whatever, and I talk to young artists because I'm curious. I'm still curious, how are they going to interact with me, etc., etc. And I don't give them any information on who I am. I just ask like this piece, I really like this, and I give my opinion. Just simply what I see at that moment. Just a first impression. And what will happen often, not always, but often, is that they will start disagreeing with me. They will start yeah, I understand, yeah, cool, but I actually created it because of this, and this was the intention, this is the meaning behind it, and actually, what you're saying there, I understand it, but that's not really correct, it's more like this, and etc., etc. And they will start to explain it there, but on top of that, they will disagree with me. That's the worst thing you can do, is disagreeing with the collector. Now, I'm not a collector in that particular scenario, but still, that will happen a lot. And that's just not the right way to do it. And I hear this from a lot of collectors as well, that an artist will, to some extent, even talk a little bit down on them because their opinion isn't good enough or isn't correct about their art. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's not the way to go. Perhaps you've learned that in university to give critique and to strengthen your opinions. And that's good. If you're an art critic, that's what you need. If you're a curator, that's probably what you need. But if you want to sell art, that's not what you need. And so So there's no judgment necessary about somebody else's opinion on your work. Just leave that out. Okay, let's go to the second tip, because otherwise this is gonna be a long video. Now, the second advice for artists starting out. Now, if you're in the selling art game and an art collector shows interest during an art fair, for example, what a lot of times will happen is that you have works that you really like and that you think are really, really good, and perhaps they're a little bit more crafty, more skilled, you put more time and effort in them, and the collector is interested in other works, or work that the collector, his attention gets attracted or caught by that particular work, and they're not interested in your favorite work. What a lot of times will happen is that those artists will then try to guide the collector towards their best work, out of good intentions, not out of bad intentions, out of good intentions. And because they think that those works have a higher chance of selling. And that's the worst thing you can do. Like, you don't want to do that. Why? Because when you're going against their feeling, against what they feel, what they want, what they desire, and you try to sell them something else, then they will be feeling like, hey, wait a minute. This person, this artist, I cannot buy this. I cannot buy this particular artwork. They don't want to sell this artwork to me, and they want to sell something else, and then the whole, like, what is going on here? You know, like they will feel as if their desire is being manipulated a little bit, and so don't do that. When an art collector shows interest in your artwork, in a particular artwork that you might not like, let them have their opinion, you know? Let them have their full opinion and guide them in that particular work. Talk about that work that they're interested in. And perhaps their interest shifts afterwards. But don't try to force some artwork on them. That's just not the right strategy. And it's a strategy that a lot of artists use. Why? Because they feel like they have to talk with passion about their art. And the way they can talk with most passion is when they can talk about their favorite works. We already covered that in the first point. You don't have to talk in the sales game. When you're selling art, you don't have to talk. They have to talk. You have to ask questions. The third advice for beginner artists is the following one. When you're going to show your work, especially when it's somewhat of a branded event, a branded art fair, for example, then definitely don't raise your prices. A lot of times artists are connecting their own ego and their own self-esteem and their own image as an artist to their price, to the price point that they sell their art on. And so, for example, they go to somewhat of a branded art fair, and they feel like, yeah, but wait a minute, if I ask 900 euro for this particular painting and other artists ask 2,000, 3,000 for, like, then I'm gonna look like an artist that's not good. I'm gonna be an artist that's less good than them. Don't be like that. Don't feel like that. There's no necessity for that. It's not because it's a branded art fair that you have to raise your prices because of that. A lot of times people and collectors and people in general go to those art fairs to buy directly from artists, especially when it's an art fair where you as an artist stand to buy works that are a little bit less expensive. And so you raising your price is actually going against the market dynamic that is playing out there. And so don't do that. When I was, and this is something that is to some extent logic. A lot of artists think about that. When I was showing during the Friese Art Fair in London, showing on the other art fair, then a lot of other artists were asking me this as well. We were talking, you know, like, and they asked, like, yeah, I was thinking about raising my price because of blah, blah, blah. And this is something that artists think about, but not necessary. Don't raise them. If you are not confident about your price for your artwork, then check out one of my videos on pricing your art. I have several different tactics. One that is more oriented towards pricing in order to attract art galleries. Another one that is more oriented towards something else. Watch one of those videos so that you can understand properly how to price your work and you can show that with confidence. And so yeah, let's go on to one more extra little small advice. The last advice for upcoming artists is the following one. And why the following one? Because I want to show you that if you listen to these advices and you notice that there is something that you don't do yet, or a mistake that you've made, that's fine. Like everybody makes mistakes continuously. And sometimes when you're already several years in your career, still make stupid mistakes. Or like just there's so much to solve that you will never have enough time to solve all problems. This perfectionism thing is not necessary. And you don't need all of these things to already sell art. You can sell art without doing any of those things. I'm just saying that it's going to be easier and better when you do. And so this last advice for new artists is something that I don't do myself. And it's kind of silly because it's actually super easy. What you should be doing in your studio when you're letting people come in is, instead of showing art to them in your messy studio, which my studio is, both of them are really messy. And what I oftentimes do is I show art there in the mess, like next to other artworks, next to paint, next to everything. Is just one big mess. What you should be doing instead is carving out a little space in your studio where you can show your work. And so yeah, that's what you should be doing, because it looks neat, it looks fine, it matters. There's a reason why a gallery, when you're going to a gallery, an opening of a show, that the walls are white and empty and the whole thing is empty. It just looks nice. Putting really good art next to a pile of mess is not gonna make the right impression. And so I would give that as an advice. It's probably not the most important thing, but let's finish off there so that you know that everybody makes mistakes continuously all the time. So when you're in desperate need of art career advice, art business advice, then I would recommend to definitely subscribe, because we will be giving you that more advice just like this one. And yeah, that said, my name is Dries Ketels. I'm an artist and I'm here to help you out. And at this moment, there should be some kind of link to pricing your art videos so that you can be confident about pricing your art. As said, yeah. Ciao, ciao. See you later on this channel somewhere. Ciao.